I'm adding one more little video here about some of the most common problems with facing authors. It's called Don't Spend 5 Years Writing It, Overcoming Procrastination and Writer's Block. There's a couple issues that are important, and like I said, most people skip them because most people will help you to market or publish your book after you've written your book. But in my experience, after working with almost 1,000 authors, you can always take your project and make it really good looking and market it really, really well. Most of the times, the ones that are actually successful happen to have a big market of readers who like a certain type of genre, and that book satisfies those readers. So instead of that being accidental, I really want you to, or I want to impress upon you the importance that you can decide to write those kind of books instead of accidentally, because publishing success, if everybody just writes the books they want to write and then they just hope for the best after you publish, publishing success is always a lottery draw between authors, because some authors accidentally wrote books in popular genres that satisfy readers. I don't think it has to be a lottery draw. I think you can deliberately write the types of books that sell well and make money so that you can keep writing. But a couple issues that come up a lot. When you're writing your first book, you're probably really going to care about it. And because you're so passionate about the project, it's going to be hard to finish. And that's true for a few reasons. On the one hand, if you haven't studied plotting or structure or story architecture, you're basically just ramming your head against the wall, trying to figure out how to organize the story into a book. It doesn't have to be that way. You shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel that was pretty much perfected in ancient Greece thousands of years ago. You need to learn a little bit of story architecture so you know how you can tell a powerful story that impacts readers on an emotional level. That stuff you don't have to figure out. You shouldn't be trying to figure that stuff out on your own. You want to be figuring out how you can apply those tried and true methods of story architecture to better tell your story in a way that resonates with readers. And that's just, using training wheels until you've figured it out. So if you're having a lot of trouble, and this is the other reason I don't really believe in writer's block or procrastination. Usually you get stuck. It's very difficult and frustrating to write a book, but often it's because you're stuck with the story and it doesn't quite fit together. There's a problem. It's very challenging holding in your mind all of the different levels of layers and information and characters and scenes and settings, who knows what, when. Laying it all out in your mind and keeping it organized is really hard and challenging. But if you're stuck, because it's almost always because you don't know what happens next, or there's a problem with the scene and you don't know how to fix it, that's the kind of stuff that story architecture will actually help you. So if you read StoryFix, Plot Perfect, and StoryGrid, you'll become more aware of how you can organize your book in a way that makes it easier for you to finish the writing. If you've organized your book really, really well, and the plot is perfect, or for nonfiction, the organization, the structure is well outlined, you really should just be able to go in and fill in the blanks and just write, exactly what has to happen in the scene, the critical shift, the conflict. You're just writing the scene, but you're confident about it because it belongs there. So you can avoid a lot of procrastination and writer's block just by learning story structure. But also, if it's your first book, you care about it so much you want to get it perfect. And the problem with getting it perfect is you'll worry about small details that don't actually matter, and you'll probably do things wrong anyway because you're trying to make the book as you think it should be made rather than making the product that's going to attract the right readers. That's a huge mind shift, and if you're in the wrong frame of thinking, you're going to make a product that doesn't sell or doesn't attract your readers. So it might be a brilliant book, it might be totally perfect, but because you've put a cover on it or you've made design decisions or marketing decisions that are based on personal opinions or preferences, but you've never done any research, you don't really know how to sell books or how to reach your market, you'll have made poor decisions which ruin your book marketing efforts. Because if your book isn't well designed or designed in the right way, if you've written a book without structuring it in the right way that appeals to readers, it's going to be very difficult for you to market it later. So the reason you shouldn't spend 5 years writing your book, I mean, you can. Your first book, most people spend 5 years writing their first book, but it's a learning experience, and that first book usually fails because authors did everything wrong. Then they start figuring out, usually by their second or third book, they're like, okay, I can write, but my last book wasn't successful. I would like this book to actually find some readers. I'd like some readers to read this book. I'd like some readers to review it. I'd like to earn some money. I'd like to not spend thousands of dollars in a couple years on marketing when nothing worked anyway. You can overcome a lot of this common author frustration by shifting your mindset. And that's why I usually don't work with first-time authors, is because second or third-time authors are willing to let me do the things I have to do to sell the book, whereas first-time authors tell me what they want and expect that I'm going to just do the things they want, even when I know they're hurting their own book success, which is why I usually refuse to do the things that authors want, and it's also why I'm getting out of client services. But you don't want to spend a lot of time or obsess about small details or worry about getting everything perfect, because your first book's probably not going to be perfect anyway. What you really want to do is get something out there fast and publish. And that's why I usually recommend for the first book, instead of finishing the project that you really care about, you should make something smaller that you don't care so much about, that's a test, that you can kind of let go of that massive responsibility that you feel to getting this perfect project right, and just do it, basically just doing something well enough that you can finish something so that you can design and publish it and put it out there, so that you can start getting the experience and feedback that you need to, like, if it's your one, like your lifetime project that you care about, you don't want that to be your first book, because your first book's never going to be rarely is going to be as successful as future books once you've learned how to do things the right way. So what you should really do is publish some smaller standalone projects that are easier and faster, that you don't care so much about, so that you can be building up your platform and experience, so that in a few years you can do that book the right way and do it well and sell a lot of copies. Instead of you don't want to use the important book to make all the mistakes that you're invariably going to make publishing your first book. So it's just some final pointers. This is coming from years of working with authors as a service provider. So I kind of know where authors get stuck, and that they often obsess or get stuck on the wrong problems that don't really matter. This section is basically just preparation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about setting realistic expectations of goals. We're going to set some goals so that you know exactly what you're shooting for. I'm also going to talk about the process of getting beta readers. You probably don't want to get beta readers until you've designed a cover and until the book is done and edited. But it can be really helpful if you're not sure about the book. If beta readers hate it and they tell you they hate specific things about your book, it would be worth it to fix those things. So I'll talk about those a little bit in the next video, and then we'll move on to actually designing and publishing the book.